You're homeless, aren't you? What business does a homeless person have at a bank?
As I walked into the bank I always use, just like any other day, I was unexpectedly confronted with these words at the entrance. What? Homeless? Me?
Yes. With those dirty clothes, what else could you be? We do not welcome homeless people here.
Suddenly being treated like a homeless person, I was baffled. I had come during a break from work, wearing my work clothes as usual. But naturally, I had never been called homeless before. I heard that this man is the new branch manager. I couldn't believe that someone in his position would treat a customer like a homeless person and try to drive them away. Isn't that remark a bit rude?
What do you mean rude? You stink. You're bothering the other customers. Get out of here now.
I tried to explain the misunderstanding, but he wouldn't listen at all. Like shooing away a stray dog, he dismissively waved his hand at me. Well, if you don't understand, I have my own way of handling this. Unable to bear it any longer, I took out my smartphone and made a call. The man in front of me still didn't know that this call would end his high-flying career. My name is Greg Thomas. I run a small business with about a dozen employees. Thanks to everyone, business is going well, and I am living a satisfying life. However, you wouldn't believe it from where I stand today, but the home I grew up in was very poor.
Mom, I'm still hungry.
I'm sorry, that's all we have for today.
We live day to day, barely getting enough food, often going hungry. My family lost my father early on, and my mother was the sole breadwinner, working tirelessly day and night. Although she worked nearly non-stop, it was still incredibly tough to raise a growing boy like me. With little time spent with my mother and often not enough food, my childhood was tough, but I had no choice but to persevere, seeing how hard my mother worked. I always had it in the back of my mind that the only way to enrich our family's finances was for me to start working early. By the time I reached the age when I had to decide on my future path, our family was still poor, and there was no way we could afford to send me to college. While lots of my friends were talking about going to college, all I could do was watch enviously. Unable to choose further education, I graduated from high school and started working. Entering the workforce with high school diploma was scary, but it was my only option. With such a basic education, I couldn't be picky about jobs. I just had to find any work and kept at it without any days off. There were times when hard physical labor was screaming through my body, and times when I was unfairly scolded by customers in service jobs. The days were physically and mentally exhausting. Yet, I kept working tirelessly every single day. In this unfamiliar environment, I continued to help my family's finances while saving money to start my own business. From the time I started working, owning my own business was always my goal. I understood the difficulties, but I believed that if I could start and succeed in my own business, I could make life easier for my family. Lacking higher education, even if I tried to achieve results as an employee, my educational background was a hurdle. Searching for jobs as a middle school graduate, I was shocked at how few options there were. Almost everywhere, the minimum requirement was a high school diploma. If it was hard to work in a big company and earn a high income, then the remaining options were very few. That's why I aimed to become a business owner. Of course, I understood that living as a business owner would be difficult, but that was the only option I could think of. And with the money I had worked hard and saved, I eventually started my own company. Now, a considerable amount of time has passed since I started my business. Since starting the business, there have been many things to do and busy days, but the company's performance has significantly improved, and we're doing well. Thankfully, we have grown to the point where we can employ staff. One busy day at work, I went to the bank. I use a major bank to transfer salaries to the employees working in my company. I was coming to this bank, with which I usually have good relations, when I was stopped at the entrance by a man.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Startled by the sudden approach, I wondered what was going on and turned around to reply to the man who had called out to me. The man who spoke to me was dressed in a fine suit. "Excuse me, may I ask who you are?" Since I did not recognize the man who approached me, I asked about his identity, and he responded with a snort.
"I am Mike, the branch manager of this bank."
From the moment he first spoke, I thought he sounded pompous, but his attitude was indeed very arrogant. I was shocked by his behavior. He didn't even use polite language with me, a customer. Moreover, although I had been using this branch before, I had never seen Mike, who claimed to be the branch manager. It seems we're meeting for the first time. Having frequented this bank several times, I had a general idea of the staff's faces. I remember having met the branch manager before, but he was an older gentleman, not the man standing before me.
"I've just been assigned here."
According to Mike, the previous branch manager had transferred to another branch, and he had come here to take over as the new branch manager. The previous branch manager had been a very gentlemanly person who treated everyone well. But Mike, who had become the new manager, seemed to be a completely different type of person. It was the first time I'd been treated with such a high-handed attitude, and I didn't know how to react. I couldn't understand why someone in charge of a branch would respond so arrogantly to a visitor. At a loss for words due to his demeanor, I was trying to think of what to say next. Suddenly being addressed in such a condescending manner and told that he was the branch manager, I couldn't figure out what he wanted. Struggling to find words, Mike scrutinized me from head to toe. As I wondered why I was being stared at so intensely, Mike opened his mouth.
"You're homeless, aren't you? What business does a homeless person have at a bank?"
"What? Homeless?" Taken aback by the unexpected accusation, I asked him to repeat himself.
"With such dirty clothes, what else could you be? We do not welcome homeless people here."
Suddenly being treated as homeless, I was baffled. I had come during a break from work, wearing my work clothes, which is usual for me. But of course, I had never been called homeless before. No, I am indeed wearing dirty work clothes, but I am.
"You stink. You're bothering the other customers. Get out of here."
Saying this, Mike waved his hand dismissively. I've never been treated like this before. Being treated as homeless and even pointed out for my smell made me feel quite awful. Isn't that comment a bit rude? I pointed out his rudeness due to his extreme statements, but Mike's attitude didn't soften.
"What do you mean rude? This is totally fine for dealing with a homeless person."
Being called homeless was a complete misunderstanding on Mike's part. How satisfied can one get from insulting others based on their own assumptions without listening to them? I'm not homeless, and I have been using this bank before.
That was then.
Why would you say such a thing to a customer? I pleaded desperately, but Mike just sneered at me.
What happened before doesn't matter. I'm the branch manager now. As long as I'm in charge, filthy homeless like you won't be allowed inside.
That's absurd.
What? What were you planning to do coming here, Big A?
That doesn't sound like something a branch manager should say.
Shut up. Don't ever come back to our bank. Just go home.
Until now, as I usually use this bank, I kept my anger in check and responded modestly. Although it was a rude behavior, I thought if I explained, he might understand. But his utter disregard for my feelings and the series of insults he threw at me caused me significant discomfort. I've used various banks before, but I've never been treated so poorly. Being treated as homeless by someone in the banking sector, and moreover someone with a position, is an experience I'd never had before and never expect to have again. Mike's behavior was so abnormal, I could say it with certainty. Certainly, after being spoken to like that, I couldn't just leave without saying anything. Understood. I won't use it ever again. With that declaration, I pulled out my smartphone from the pocket of my work clothes and made a call to a certain individual. Hello, Mr. President. I'm canceling my company's $200 million account right now. Please take care of it. The person on the other end of the phone was saying something, but I just conveyed my message and hung up. At Mike's bank, I have a corporate account worth $200 million. From the content of the phone call I just made, Mike should have realized the truth. I thought that knowing I was a major client might change Mike's attitude. However, looking at Mike, who had heard the call, he was making a face that utterly mocked me. From Mike's expression, it was clear he hadn't understood anything from the phone call.
$200 million. You, a homeless. As if such a filthy guy could have contact with the president.
Mike thought the content of my call was a lie and laughed it off, mocking me.
You're mocking me, as if such a lie would work. Stop joking around and just go home.
After mocking me, he suddenly raised his voice and became threatening. He seemed completely convinced that what I said was a lie. What benefit would I have from lying? A normal person would have apologized after hearing the phone call, but it seems that's not the case here. Arguing further seems pointless with Mike, who refuses to believe my words and insists I'm homeless. In the first place, I'm not trying to show off my position of having a large corporate account. I gave up on entering, hung up the phone, and immediately left the scene. Ultimately, I was driven away and could not complete the intended task of transferring salaries, so I returned to my company. I was resting in the president's office for a bit, as the events earlier had had too much of an impact on me and I was a bit tired. I can't believe I was treated as homeless. The event was so unexpected and shocking. It stunned me that I could be seen as homeless. At that moment, an employee knocked on the door and entered.
Sir, someone from the bank is here to see you.
I was sure someone from the bank would come to visit the company. They came quite quickly. Let them in. A few minutes later, there was another knock on the door. Come in. Entering the room after my invitation were the bank executive and Mike. Apparently, my request to cancel my account escalated the situation to the point where Mike couldn't come to apologize alone. Mike, who had been very aggressive and insulting until now, looked lifeless. Mike, staring at me with a pale face, I wondered what he must be feeling standing here now. Mike had not believed a word I said. His presence here with the executive meant he must have heard the truth about me. The executive who came with Mike seemed to be standing in for the president, who had prior commitments and couldn't come in person. Therefore, they sent a high-ranking executive instead. After explaining the situation, the executive then knelt before me.
I deeply apologize for the disrespectful behavior Mike displayed towards you.
He knelt down on his knees to the floor in apology. I thought we had a good relationship, but this incident was truly regrettable. I candidly expressed my feelings. I was honest in stating my feelings. I had no intention of closing my corporate account until what had just happened. But the words thrown at me made me want to cancel it within just about 10 minutes.
I truly understand the gravity of what has happened. However, could you possibly reconsider closing your corporate account?
It seems the executive was sent by the president to try and stop me from closing the account. $200 million is a significant amount, and naturally, the bank would not want to lose such a client. The president probably thought that having a senior executive apologize would help de-escalate the situation. Even so. But after being subjected to such harsh words, I wasn't ready to forgive so easily. I glanced at Mike, who stood slightly behind the executive. Looking pale, bowed down, and seemingly shaking. He must have been shocked to find out that the man in work clothes he had scorned as a homeless person actually had a $200 million account. There's a reason I have such a substantial corporate account. I currently run a recycling business, and ever since I started saving money, I wanted to work in this field. Even as a high school graduate, I knew that environmental issues were a pressing concern both domestically and internationally. And if I was going to start a business, I wanted it to benefit people. However, getting the business on track was not a simple task. Starting from scratch, I didn't know which way to turn. Because of this, results didn't come immediately after I started. For a while after establishing the company, I struggled without seeing much success. Still, having put so much effort into reaching the startup phase, I was not about to give up easily. I can't go on like this. I have to create something unique and strong. To get out of this situation, I first needed to come up with something that would make the company stand out. From there, I dreamed of success every day and continued to work hard. I learned on my own and even spent money I didn't have to gain cooperation from university research institutions. Though it took time, my efforts paid off, and I successfully developed a unique technology. The technology I developed enabled the rapid recycling of waste materials. With the increased speed of recycling, efficiency improved beyond previous levels. The first to notice my technology were countries in Europe, sensitive to environmental issues worldwide. As European companies began to take interest in the technology, my company became globally recognized. Companies worldwide wanted licensing agreements for the technology I developed, and many contracts brought substantial profits to the company. Additionally, as the company's reputation grew, the profits from our original recycling operations also doubled. I had held a corporate account at Mike's Bank since I started the business, which is why I had deposited the $200 million in profits there. But even though we have transformed into a company that performs that well, I myself did not want to change, and I don't think I should change. I can't be the only one in the CEO's office and act all important, and I still wear my work clothes and work in the field. I also really like that. I might not look like a typical CEO. Even so, That's no excuse for someone to hurl such vile words just because I'm wearing slightly dirty work clothes.
I'm sorry for earlier.
Mike, coming next to the kneeling executive, also knelt down. He seemed as meek as a borrowed cat, but after what was said, I wasn't in a forgiving mood. I've been grateful to all the past branch managers since the beginning of my business, which is why I kept using this bank. I never expected to be treated like this. When I was starting my business, without much education but full of determination, previous branch managers had treated me very well. Each branch manager was kind-hearted, and I always enjoyed using the bank. I'm still grateful to those past managers, which is why I haven't changed banks until now. I was grateful, but this incident caused more discomfort than gratitude.
Yes. I spoke very inappropriately. I am truly sorry.
Mike repeatedly apologized to me. However, he is a branch manager. Such a person should not wield power to spout abuse at clients. It's inexcusable. He's not suited for a leadership position. Seeing such a person, it's possible that more bankers could start judging people by their appearance. I will never forgive you.
Please. I'm begging you.
Mike pleaded, repeatedly rubbing his forehead on the floor. Would you forgive someone if you were driven away by a company you always had good relations with, after they said the same things to you?
That's, well.
Mike stammered, clearly at a loss for words. It's no wonder he couldn't respond. After uttering such terrible things. You can't respond, can you? That's how awful your words were. I pressed further, and Mike's expression turned to one of utter despair, and he froze. Afterwards, Mike and the executive repeated their apologies and left. About an hour after they had left, I received a call from the bank's president.
Mike has caused a tremendous blunder, and it reflects a lack of proper oversight on our part.
The president apologized. I had intended to continue our relationship, but this is regrettable.
Would you reconsider? We will ensure such an incident never happens again.
Like Mike and the executive, the president also hoped to continue the business relationship. Thank you for everything until now. But I couldn't change my mind. Although the executive and the president acted quickly once they knew what Mike had done. Sometimes it's too late after the fact. This incident was one of those times. After canceling the $200 million corporate account, I opened a new one at a different bank, which turned out to be a rival of Mike's bank. The cancellation of such a large account caused quite a stir at his bank. Mike, who caused the problem, was demoted from branch manager to an entry-level position as a result of being held accountable. Mike, who had acted so high and mighty as a branch manager, was now working as a teller at a regional branch. Given that Mike was in his early 50s, a demotion to an entry-level position at his age meant that promotion was highly unlikely. He might end up working as a teller until retirement. A single mistake cost Mike a lot. I heard this from an official at the rival bank during a recent visit. If Mike hadn't judged me by my appearance, none of this would have happened. Or if I had been dressed sharply in an expensive suit, looking every bit the part of a president, Mike probably wouldn't have treated me so terribly. But perhaps, as long as Mike held those values, this issue was inevitable. In fact, many of the managers around me are my type. I guess not everyone wears nice clothes just because they are CEOs. I hope Mike has learned from this incident that judging people by their appearance can lead to severe consequences. This time, I was judged by my appearance and subjected to terrible words, which was a very unpleasant experience. The words spoken to me then are not easily forgotten. As someone who has been judged by appearance, I never want to be the kind of person who judges others solely by their looks. I intend to continue to work, keeping in mind that I must be a person who can properly know and judge people on the inside.